Early morning tremble shakes the ash right off your smoke. Contemplating nursery rhymes and broken radios. Falling off the wall is something everybody knows, but it gets old. Yeah, and worlds are crumbling inside all those cookie cutter homes. Outside we're all fighting for the right to turn to stone. Rolling through the motions isn't half as fun as tumbling on the road, but it gets old. And every night a child is born alone. I sit and listen for the world to take a breath.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't use this anyway.
But nothing stops the turning of the globe quite like a rich man's death. And the poor boys with their thumbs out in the cold, they're the ones left waiting for Godot. Trailer parks are always first in line to feel the flames. Today I watched that old wallpaper curl and float away. The rain came to wash it all to mud. The water fell too late. Yes, a carrion and I packed up that old cabriolet.
I don't have TV, so I don't
drove it till the wheels fell off near Mexico way. And I stood in line to work out on an oil rig. Cried his carryaway. And each night as I fall down so alone, I sit and listen for the world to take a breath. Nothing stops the turning of the globe quite like a rich man's death. And the poor boys with their thumbs out in the cold, they're the ones left waiting for Godot. Busted flat, remembering how my old man used to say, some grow into millionaires and some just fade away. The sun sets on everyone in time, no matter what you've made. Yeah, but no one wants the memories of soup lines and mistakes. And I can't help but wonder how the summers feel in Spain. Sometimes there's a flicker in a hubcap that takes those thoughts away.
Check, check, check. Hey, hey. I need some monitor. I can hear the mains, but not the monitor. 1, 2. Check, check, check. No, can't hear it. Bring it up. 1, 2. Check, check, check. Hey, 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 hey. Keep going, keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep going. 1, 2. Check right there. Okay, that's good. All right, let's try this. Now, let me throw a quick tune on this thing. No, you got the mics. It's good right here. monitor. It's good. I think you got a bad chord. Ooh, I thought you disconnected it. Yeah, now it's good. Okay.
Yeah.
You got a knot in it. Got another knot in it. All right, let's try this one. All right. Check, check, check. Yeah, this mic has gone way down in volume now. Yeah, 1, 2. Check, 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 check. Hey, 1, 2, 1, 2. Take it up a little bit. There we go. That'll work right there. The medallion you gave me hangs from a silver chain, resting lightly here upon my heart. Well, the guitar just came up in volume. Check, check, check. 1, 2. This should be fine. You could bring it up just a little bit. That's good. I don't know what. Well, the guitar got hot now, so you could turn the guitar down just slightly. Now the guitar's going down. Why did the guitar go down? No, I'm saying it went down. I didn't. Oh, okay. That's why. Okay. Are the mains on now? Yes. All right, can you turn the guitar up slightly in the monitor? That's good, okay. Okay, that's pretty good. Good, okay.
Hey, how you doing?
So how soon are
I
we
saw
going
you.
on?
Hey.
Presentation, do you want me to just send it to this computer or should I have my laptop?
Okay, so I'm
Do
going
you
to
have a laptop with
disconnect
the
this.
HDMI cable?
I have the,
HDMI outlet?
I have like a dongle. Yeah.
Okay, you
Are
have a
you-
dongle, it seems better.
Are you good now?
Yeah, it's just swap. Yeah, you probably are more comfortable with that one, right?
That's okay. I'm not going to use
This
it.
one is slow anyway, so I'm doing it because Richard has a Surface.
There's Wi-Fi here, right?
Oh, great Wi-Fi. It's pretty good. Well, no.
Good morning, everyone. All right, let's begin. Thank you so much.
Check,
good morning,
check.
everyone.
This needs to come up a little bit.
Morning.
Check.
My name is Terry Hibbert Ismert. I am the, have the honor of being your board president right now, and really love this community. And it's so nice to see everybody here on Sunday, and on a holiday Sunday, and we are going to have a wonderful day today. We'd like to start things out by saying, human hands solve human problems, period. Ooh, I'll find my light. So without any further ado, let's begin with a number by Hank Wojcicki. Thank you, Hank, for being here.
Good morning. If you're wondering why I'm sitting down today, it's not because I can't stand up. It's just that I was out in Terlingua for the last 2 weeks recording a new record and didn't check my case and had no guitar straps. So I could stand up, but, you know, like Johnny Cash or whatever, I'm not going to do that. So we'll start off with some words of wisdom from the great poet of Oklahoma, Mr. Woody Guthrie. If you gather around me, children, a story I will tell about pretty boy Floyd the outlaw. Oklahoma knew him well. It was in the town of Shawnee on a Saturday afternoon. His wife beside him in his wagon. As into town they rode. Well, there a deputy sheriff approached him in a manner rather rude, using vulgar words, language. His wife, she overheard. Well, pretty boy grabbed a log chain, and that deputy grabbed his gun. And in the fight that followed, well, he laid that lone man down. He ran to the hills and rivers. He lived a life of shame. Every crime in Oklahoma was added to his name. Yeah, he ran to the trees and timber on the Canadian River shore. There he found a welcome at many a farmer's door. Yeah, many a starving farmer, same old story told. How the outlaw paid their mortgage and saved their little homes. The others tell about a stranger who come begging for a meal, and underneath his napkin left $1,000 bill. And it was in Oklahoma City on a Christmas day. Come a whole carload of groceries with a letter that did say, yeah, you say that I'm an outlaw. Oh, you say that I'm a thief. Well, here's a Christmas dinner for the families on relief. Now through this world I've rambled, and I've seen lots of funny men. Some will rob you with a 6-gun, some with a fountain pen. Yeah, and through this world you wander, Oh, and through this world you roam, you won't never see an outlaw drive a family from their home. So won't you gather round me, children, a story I will tell about pretty boy Floyd the outlaw. Oklahoma knew him well. I said, pretty boy Floyd the outlaw. Oklahoma knew him well. Thank you, thank you. This next one I co-wrote with a dear friend of mine from Norman, Oklahoma. So I guess we got a little Oklahoma theme going on here. Susan Herndon out of Norman helped me out with this one. I just recorded this on my last record, came out, I think since the last time I was here. When was I here last? It was last year, I know that. Yeah, record came out in September, so I don't think I had it when I was here last. If you'd like to pick up a copy, I've got a few back there. Or if you prefer, you can just go online and steal it from me. Just go to any of the streaming services and you can get it. So here's a song from that record. Song for all of us. Come here today to talk about family. We come here today to talk about home. Brothers and sisters, we're in this together. We're all seeking shelter from the same storm. Now some would divide us, false words and confusion. Some prey on our fears, try and lead us astray. But that's just illusion, for we are united. We're all seeking truth, let truth guide our way. Mother of exiles, torch held on high, a light of hope for all to see. Give us your homeless, your tired and your poor, all those who yearn to be free. We got to start building bridges, start tearing down walls. It's time to start building bridges, start tearing down walls. We come here today to talk about forgiveness. We come here today to talk about love. Brothers and sisters, we must come together, lift up our hearts with a light from above. Sweet Lady Liberty, torch held on high, a golden light for all to see. We are your homeless, your tired and your poor. Here we learn what it means to be free. We got to start building bridges, start tearing down walls. It's time to start building bridges, start tearing down walls. We got to start building bridges, start tearing down walls. It's time to
start building bridges, start tearing down walls.
Thank you kindly.
Wow, you have been hard at work in the studio. That's gorgeous, and what a wonderful message for all of us. Our community moment is going to be given by Brian Schrock, and I just want to tell you a little bit about my own experience with this amazing naturalist person. A few years ago, he gave Ken and I, my husband and I, a tour of Exploration Green. Oh, and it was so much fun. We walked it, and he pointed out all the flora, the fauna, the everything there. Anyway, it was a lovely, lovely afternoon. So I think we're going to have a wonderful community moment. I'm so glad you're here, Brian. It's so good to see you. All right, Brian Schrock.
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is some of you have actually probably seen this before if you've been here in the last like 5 years. I try and come almost every March or April to give this talk, and I actually have started giving it at more places beyond Oasis. So I gave it a couple weeks ago. It was a 40-minute presentation, and now I'm going to see how to reduce that down to a 10-minute one. So this might feel like a bit of a whirlwind, but you know, I'll be around during the break and afterwards, and can answer any questions and things I might have left out. Let me see here. I think that's about as full screen as I'm going to get it, actually. So the iNaturalist City Nature Challenge is based on an app called iNaturalist. And I know some of you have used it because I know you are. I see you on the app and see the uploads you're making. But if you don't know, iNaturalist is kind of one of those series of apps that started over the last few years that can help identify something with your phone's camera. It uses like image learning, so you know it's kind of like a mild AI. It uses image learning to help identify things, and now those things are kind of built into Google. Like if you have a Google Pixel or a Samsung, any Android or Apple, like the camera function now kind of has that built in. But this app still has stayed pretty relevant because unlike the whole slew of different AI identification apps out there, this one also has a human element behind it and a community behind it. So it began, I think it was created about 2008 by some college students as part of their final project, and it eventually was partnered with a museum and has become its own nonprofit organization since then. But here's what it would look like if you just had it open on your phone. Your observations are there, those little cubes. Each one of those is an observation that I have made. It kind of shows you at the top how many observations, how many species you've seen, how many things you've helped identify. And this is actually my picture from like 5 years ago, so I have quite a bit more than that now. But let's say you go out in the field and you see these cute little ducks. And you think, you know, maybe you know what they are, or maybe you just know they're probably a water bird of some kind. What you can do is you take the picture, you hit that green button down there on your phone app, and you upload it. And most phones these days, if you have it turned on, and most are turned on by default, you'll have like coordinates and a timestamp, all that stuff, the geotag they call it, is kind of already in every picture you take. So most modern phones just kind of remember where you took that picture. So when you upload it, it just automatically pulls that out. You see it gave it an address, a date, and a time. And that's really important because when you're doing citizen science, you want that information as part of the picture. So you go to identify it, and the AI image software did a really good job on this one. Immediately, it knew what it was. So if you're not 100% sure, you could hit that top one where it says, I'm pretty sure it's this, but you know, I'm pretty sure it's that black-bellied whistling duck. So I hit it, and there, I've got my ID. And you see below, 2 more people, shortly after I posted that, also agreed. This is a black-bellied whistling duck. And this is the important part about this app. So you get that AI help and assistance with identifying it, and then more human users that will help back up your observation and say, yes, you had that right. And if I didn't have it right, there's usually someone that follows up and disagrees, and people will sometimes debate a little bit, go back and forth, but typically the most IDs it gets in one positive direction, it settles on that. You can do the same thing on the website if you're one of those people who likes to photograph with like a point-and-click camera or just something that's not your phone. You can also upload that way and explore around on the site. It's nice you can do bulk uploads of your plants, animals, birds, whatever you saw out in the field. And so one of the nice things about this data is it goes and compiles it with all the other user data out there. And on the website, you can look at things like this. You've got that graph down there that shows you when it's most often photographed. You can see it generally seems to occur kind of in the spring, early summer. You get information at the top about who sees this the most and who's identifying it the most. And you also get this cool map where everybody's observations are displayed for this species. And you can see in red that they have like natural ranges for this species, and people sometimes even see it outside the range. And this is kind of what makes the citizen science helpful here, is scientists can use this to track like ranges and dates where animals are moving from one place to another, or migrating, or if they're going outside their migratory boundaries. All of this information is there for them to use should they need it. And of course, I like to encourage people, when you are going out in the field and identifying things, like this person who saw this box elder, make sure that is exactly what you are taking a picture of before you handle it, because the community might disagree, and then by that point you might have already found out you were wrong. And this is one of my favorite, well, this is a scary story in a lot of senses, but it is one of my favorite things this site has been used for. If you've been to like the Philly area, where we actually have 3 of our Galveston Bay Oasins representing us at AACon, or whatever it's called up there. If you're up there and you see this fly, or really anywhere around New York, Pittsburgh, basically that whole megalopolis area, this is called the spotted lanternfly. And it has become an extremely invasive species in the US. It showed up in about 2014 or 15, and you can see in the bottom corner there, that's what its eggs look like. And the reason this thing was able to come over here from Asia is those eggs just, if they're laid on anything, a shipping container, a crate, it's like, you wouldn't even notice them. They're so small, they almost mean nothing. You see it and you're like, But so I took this over the years. Every one of these frames is a year on iNaturalist, and the user, all the user observations of it. And you can see how it started in Philly and has been slowly spreading to other places, including parts of Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, down into the Carolinas. And people have uploaded them, and in fact, this user saw this one in Michigan, and within a few days, the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development in Michigan put out this warning saying, hey, we noticed a user spotted this, please be aware, particularly if you're a freight carrier or someone working around shipping containers or warehouses. So that's where the citizen science really comes into play on what makes this app useful. But here's what makes it fun. So the City Nature Challenge is something they devised, I think around 2016 or 15, and it originally started as a competition between a couple cities, and it was LA and San Francisco. And the competition had 3 categories: which city makes the most observations, which one has the most observers, and which city saw the most different species. And really, that's the one we care about. So let me see here. I'm going to try and make this a little bigger on my end. There we go. Yeah, so the City Nature Challenge 2016, you can see there the maps. They basically had over 1,000 people turn out and make 21,000 observations of 2,800 species, and that was just between those 2 cities. By 2017, they moved it to 16 cities in the USA, and Houston was one of those, and we actually won the most species that year. 2018, 69 cities across the globe. 2019, 159 cities on 6 continents, and by 2020, even though we were in the middle of a pandemic, people still got outside, and Houston, Galveston won again. We tend to be at this wonderful crossroads here in Houston where we have the coastal species, the Katy Prairie, we've got the piney woods to our north, and we've got the Columbia bottomlands to our south. So there's so many different things you can see here. But as you can see, like other cities really nip at our heels when we do these competitions. And that was out of 244 cities. So Houston had the most species. This was from last year. They've since added, I mean, it's like up into the 400s now of cities participating. They've added that top one, they call it the Global Project. So if you're outside of a major city, this is where your entries go when you make observations. Hong Kong, Cape Town, and La Paz, Bolivia have been like the #1 cities ever since they joined. They're all really good at getting a bunch of people out. And Houston Galveston is still #1 in North America. So throughout the years, lots of good results, but you can see how much this competition has grown. Just last year, they had 66,000 people participating. We saw 57,000 species, and this year, we could probably surpass 60,000. And over 1,800,000 observations were made last year. So why participate? Really, it's fun. It gets us out in our cities. It gets your kids outside. It gets you outside. You learn a lot more about what you're seeing, and you come to appreciate the nature all around you. But it also really helps that citizen science aspect. So here's just a few things we saw last year. This beautiful forest tent caterpillar moth. Their larvae have probably defoliated your oak trees in the past. Our Gulf Coast toad. This one you've probably all seen if you step outside at night. This cute little longhorn beetle that's so unusual, he doesn't even have a common name. Blue mist flower, favorite of mine. When I go to the beach, I also like to look at shells because evidence of life is still an observation, so it counts. The crab might not be in it anymore, or a crab might not be in it, and the original snail gastropod might not be in it, but it still counts. Here's one of our few native orchid species. This one popped up at Exploration Green a few years ago. And then this is one of my favorite. Last year, a bunch of our friends, we went to the beach together during the City Nature Challenge. They went to have fun. I went to look for things. When we were out there, we found this sooty eel. It was just like a little face staring at me out of the sand. And I'd never seen this before. And I found out once we uploaded it that it was not only like the only one uploaded during the competition, but only 46 are even registered on iNaturalist. It's a pretty rare species for a site that has in the hundreds of millions of uploads now. And of course, have fun. Take your partner with you, you know. That's my wife in the picture. She's very good about, despite me stopping every 5 seconds to look at things on our walks, sometimes she also helps me catch things. So, Oasins. In addition to our City Nature Challenge that I invite you to participate in, we also have our own Oasis group on iNaturalist. And this is somewhere where we track just the uploads of Oasins and the species we've seen. And it includes even our Oasins in other cities, at the other communities, as well as Oasins that are on our Oasis Network Discord server. So people sometimes from other countries and other parts of the US that don't have a local Oasis community, they're on there with us helping make identifications. And so I actually just took a new picture of this last night. Our team has made 12,000 observations of over 2,700 species. And let's see here. And we've got 28 people on the team right now that are helping observe. And you can see we've actually started to really cover the US, and we've branched out into a number of other countries since then. We still have yet to get Canada despite having Venezuela. I don't know which one of you went to Venezuela, but thank you. So here, if you have your phone and you want to take a picture of this, these are the dates of the competition. It'll be April 26th through 29th. Those are the days where you are going to be making your observations. So any of those days, go outside, pull out iNaturalist and start taking your photos. And then after April 29th, when the competition, the photography part ends, the next part is to go out and, or actually come back in, I should say, and help identify things. And if you're not too sure what everything you saw was, that's all right. There are a lot of organizations here in Houston that know this event is coming, and they get on there specifically to help. And these are like entomologists, university biologists, grad students, like they're ready, and they're always helping Team Houston through this section. And then typically, in that second week of May, we find out who had the most observations, who had the most people participating, and of course, who had the most species. And I really, really hope Houston continues to hold on to North America and be the champions there. One more slide for you to take pictures of, and I'll leave this up. You can join Team Oasis. Just send me an email. I'm Brian Schrock at oasisnetwork.com. And if you're on our Discord server, or if you can find me, I haven't been on Facebook in like a year and a half, but if you do happen to find me on there, you can send me a message through there. I should still get it. But the email's probably the best way. And I'll make sure you get added into our Oasis Network iNaturalist group. And I'm sure that, I don't know how much I push the boundary for time, but if you have any questions, I will be walking around during the break, and I'll just leave this here. So if you need to look at the app or you want me to show it to you, I can do that. And yeah, I look forward to having your help participating, and I hope we are the champions again.
Wow, this is just right up my alley. I love to observe and look and see things, so I am definitely going to join. It'll be so much fun. We're going to take our coffee break right now, and so 10 minutes, and you guys meet, greet, visit, enjoy each other's company for a few minutes, and I'll see you back in 10 minutes, okay? to give you in the theater, the 1-minute warning. At least I tried to do that. That's not bad. We're doing good on time. We didn't get to talk. All right. This is going well, Lou. Okay, guys, let's get started again, please. Oh, well. Why don't we just start with a song from Hank, and that will lure oh, we have no sound technician. Charles.
It's a little loud. And that sounds pretty good. Yeah, well, we can live with that. Are we good to go?
Hank Woji. Yes.
Thank you. Welcome back. Yeah, we just had a great little discussion out in the hall about streaming music. I made a comment earlier, and some of you didn't quite get the gist of what I was saying. So just to be clear, is everybody in? Just to be clear, my music is available online, and you can go on and stream it. But just know that streaming music is stealing music. When you stream songs, you're basically stealing it from the artist. Not just me, any artist. The owner of Spotify last year made a couple $2 billion. I get 1/100th of a penny for every time one of my songs is streamed. So you can go online and buy my music, or you can buy it here, but any artist, if you're streaming their music, you are stealing it. So on that positive note, here's a song for a new record I did last year. There's a song of redemption and second chances. I'll be leaving in the morning, westward bound, I'm sure you know. And there ain't much time left for talking. So honey, do you wanna go? Some say the highway is for gamblers. So let's roll those dice one more time. This road, it won't go on forever, but it might just last a good long ride. So don't look back, it's just a pocket full of roses. Don't look back, it's just a fistful of thorns. Don't look back, broken hearts will all be mended. Don't look back,
broken spirits be reborn. Now there's no chance in taking chances. There's no dream that can't be dreamed. In a world so unexpected, won't you take a chance on me? 'Cause we've seen enough to know better. Thrown all caution to the wind. We've tasted sweet wine and the bitter fruit. Lost enough times to know what it really means to win. So don't look back, it's just a pocket full of roses. Don't look back, it's just a fistful of thorns. Don't look back, broken hearts will all be mended. Don't look back, broken spirits be reborn. I'll be leaving in the morning, westward bound, I'm sure you know. And there ain't much time left for talking. So honey, do you want to go? Don't look back, it's just a pocket full of roses. Don't look back, it's just a fistful of thorns. Don't look back, broken hearts will all be mended. Don't look back, broken spirits be reborn.
Thank you, Hank, and we will hear another song from you a little bit later. Thanks. Our main talk is by Dr. Richard Andrews. He is a board member. He is an incredibly important member of our community, and he has been he helps all of us very quietly. You know, we come to him with questions, and we come to him with concerns, and he's always ready to share his knowledge with us. And we really appreciate you being here today to share this. So Dr. Richard Andrews.
Thank you. Hey, folks. Somebody asked me earlier this morning, what does tidbits mean? And it's basically, it's an old English word that refers to a tasty bit of food, or it has come to mean a tasty bit of information. So hopefully you'll find something tasty in here. So let's see. And so I try to give these talks a coherent theme, and sometimes that works. You can decide for yourself if it's a coherent theme. But it ends up being stuff I've seen recently that's interesting to me. So here are some of the topics that you'll hear about today. Okay, so the Surgeon General is the federal government's top physician, basically, the Surgeon General puts out an advisory, a report every now and then when there's an issue of interest to the public health, something that he or she is concerned about, but generally with a view toward making things better by making people aware of things and whatnot. And so I was struck in early 2023, and not too surprising in the aftermath of the pandemic, of course, but I think there would have been cause to do this even without a pandemic, honestly. I think this was simply exacerbated by the pandemic. And so you can take a look at this report. I encourage you to at least look at the summary of the report. And by the way, there's anybody who wants a copy of the slides with the links and whatnot, you can contact me and I'll send that to you. But it's terribly important. An epidemic of loneliness. And of course, we all will have our opinions about what the various causes of that are. And finding causes is certainly important if we hope to fix things. But there are some things, so I know some of this stuff sounds depressing, but I tend to be an optimist by nature, and so I try to follow up with suggestions, solutions, and so for virtually all these things, there are solutions. So, but it's interesting to me that that loneliness, that is to say social disconnection, that's one of the things that I love about Oasis, of course, is that here we do a lot of social connecting. In fact, that's the main purpose, really, of Oasis, I would say. But it turns out when there is social disconnection, when there is loneliness, that can lead to physical consequences. And this is simply empirical. In other words, we can talk about what's the mechanism and stuff like that. And like I say, that's important to do and interesting. But frequently, when they identify somebody who feels socially disconnected and has loneliness, then we see higher rates of these physical conditions. Let me see. Now, how can I turn off this? Okay, there it is. So heart disease is increased, stroke, dementia in the elderly, and premature death. Why does it matter that there's an epidemic of loneliness in the U.S.? And there may be epidemics of loneliness elsewhere as well, because of some of the same factors. The pandemic, social media has a particular impact on teenagers, for example, especially adolescent girls, but also others, and diseases of despair. Oops, what happened to that? Let me see. I lost. Let me see if I can go back to the slideshow here. I'm having a disease of despair myself right now. Let me see.
Okay, then you just have to advance. Oops. That was it?
Okay, Kevin's going to give the talk. Okay, so diseases of despair. This is a term that was coined not too long ago to describe suicides and drug overdose deaths in particular. The term was coined because it seems to be associated with things like economic dislocation, depression, hopelessness, things like that. There are certain communities in the U.S. And elsewhere where you have economic dislocation, and then you can follow that community over time and see a rise in suicides and drug overdose deaths. And as a parenthesis on the drug overdose deaths, people sometimes wonder if somebody has a drug overdose death, is that really a suicide? And no doubt it is in some cases, but it turns out most drug overdose deaths are not suicides. The evidence is quite clear on that. And I deal with these people on a regular basis because I work in a methadone clinic and I work with patients that have opioid use disorder, or otherwise known as opioid addiction. And I can tell you that these people do not want to die. You know, they, and of course, I think everyone here has heard of fentanyl, which is an extremely potent kind of opioid. And so used to be that most people were taking either opioid pills like oxycodone, hydrocodone, things like that, whereas others favored things like heroin. And over the last few years, as fentanyl came into the market, heroin basically left the market. Heroin has quite a reputation, of course, earned over time, but it is actually much weaker than fentanyl, much weaker. Heroin is perhaps twice as strong as morphine. Fentanyl is 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine. So there's really no contest whatsoever. And so we had plenty of people addicted to heroin who have had great difficulty. In fact, in some drug markets in the US, it's impossible to find heroin. You might think you're getting heroin because your dealer wants you to be a happy customer, but it's very hard to find heroin right now. So people are taking heroin. It's stuff that vaguely looks like heroin, has some fentanyl mixed in, and of course the problem with fentanyl is that one of the problems is that because it's so potent, it's very hard to get the dose right, and it's very easy to get the dose wrong, and then people die. So overdose deaths now have climbed in the last couple of years to over 100,000 per year. Automobile deaths, by contrast, on an annual basis, used to be around 55,000. I used to remember that number because that's vaguely the number of, I think that was what was the total number of Americans killed in the Vietnam War? I don't remember. But yeah. So I used to remember the number of automobile accidents because it vaguely paralleled the number of Americans killed in the Vietnam. Of course, a lot more Vietnamese were killed in the Vietnam War. But and so now, because we've gotten better at preventing significant injuries and even lowering the rate of car accidents and lowering the consequences of car accidents with airbags and that sort of thing and all the safety devices on modern cars. So I think the rate of automobile deaths in the US is now down to about 30 to 35,000 per year, while the number of overdose deaths has climbed and a couple years ago went over 100,000 per year, and it's still climbing. Mostly because of fentanyl, but now we're also seeing a lot more in the way of stimulant overdose deaths, that is to say cocaine and methamphetamine. Sometimes because it's fentanyl mixed in, and sometimes even without fentanyl being in there. So, so diseases of despair is a term that you might hear, but it specifically refers to suicides and drug overdose deaths. Community health. This is something that can actually be measured. There are various measures of how healthy is a community, and that looks at things like community level safety, the resilience of the community after a natural disaster, prosperity itself measured by various ways, and then civic engagement. And there are, and this is in the Surgeon General's report, also some of the solutions, and some of the ones that I found interesting were, you kind of get what you pay for. If you design an environment, or if you let the environment design itself, that sounds religious, but you can design environments that promote social connection. And those include physical infrastructure, parks, more libraries, more playgrounds. I was just telling somebody today that Spokane, Washington, where my sister lives, has more parks per square per square mile than any city in the country. Andy lives there half the year, and he can tell us that. So go ahead, Andy, tell us. And so we need to, there are things we can do. They require investment, right? And it requires evidence. Politicians, in addition to wanting to be reelected and wanting some other things, they also, like to see evidence, especially conservative politicians, I think, who are inclined to not want to invest more money in public things. That's part of the conservative ethos, I guess. And maybe a change in our digital environment could be helpful also. That was mentioned in the report. You may have heard that a number of states now, a few states, have banned TikTok for young teenagers. And even when it's a politician that I'm not particularly impressed with, this is something that, and it's a large topic, we could talk about, is this good or is this bad? But in any case, we certainly have to at least pay attention to and take into account the impact on both adult and young minds of the social media, which is, as you know, designed to be addictive. And they're this little thing here, which we're all addicted to. Nearly raise your hand if you're not addicted to it, or send me a text. But we really have to take that kind of thing into account. The word that might seem out of place on the screen is Cuba, because one of the other suggestions was to cultivate a culture of connection. I was always very impressed, because Cuba has done some things very well and some things badly over the years. But one of the things that I was very impressed with, especially in the aftermath of some of the hurricanes that have hit the Gulf Coast and devastated New Orleans in particular. In fact, sometimes after one of these big events, Houston gets a couple 100,000 people from the Louisiana Gulf Coast area, some of whom end up settling here. In fact, maybe some of you are from one of these storms. And Oasis early on, as I recall, was involved in helping a number of the folks that were escaping the hurricanes and who were dislocated. But in Cuba, which is a poor country, but they have an impressive medical system for whatever other criticisms you might have of the country, and I have my own criticisms. But they, in Cuba, every single person on the island is connected to a particular primary care provider. And so before a hurricane comes, because Cuba gets hit with hurricanes all the time, a lot more than we do, when they see that a hurricane's coming, they're already in touch with every single patient on the island, and they make sure that the diabetics have their insulin, the asthmatics have their inhalers, all this kind of stuff, Whereas here, something hits the Gulf Coast and suddenly there's complete chaos for weeks or months afterwards, and people didn't get their medicines, or people died, or one thing or another. I mean, people are going to die in a bad hurricane, right? But it shouldn't be because the system failed them. So that would be part of what I would call a culture of connection. I think I already did this, didn't I? Okay, let's see, make sure I'm looking at the same thing you guys are. And support groups are very helpful with social isolation. For example, in addiction, when we're lucky, when the patient is lucky, we have medicines that help with people's addictions. I prescribe methadone and another drug called buprenorphine, and these are opioids, but they have certain advantages over street drugs. Namely, you are not going to die of an overdose because we know exactly what dose you are getting. It's clean. You're not going to get HIV from it, et cetera, et cetera. You're not going to get infections from sharing needles. But there are some addictions, for example, the stimulants, cocaine and methamphetamine in particular, where we don't really have very good medicines for them. And so we're still trying to figure out what's the best way to treat these addictions. And so support groups can be extremely helpful. Actually, CB and I, a number of years ago, gave a talk on AA, which was one of the original support groups started back in 1939. And even though they screwed some things up, in particular making a lot of people think they had to be religious to recover from their addiction. But they did a lot of things right also, and a huge number of people benefited from just having a group that had been through what they've been through and understand, and I don't have to explain myself or excuse myself. I know I'm not going to get stigmatized by this group because they're in the same boat that I'm in and that kind of thing. And that sort of social connection, especially perhaps for people with addiction for whom social disconnection is one of their big issues, right? So having a group that they can go to on a regular basis is terribly important. And yeah, the brain circuits that we have that involve love, either love for a friend or love for a family member, this is something that evolution came up with, or if you believe in some other theories of how things developed, then whatever that is. So, but people talk about love and addiction being similar or being opposite sides of the same coin. And that's not a metaphor. That's real. In other words, it makes sense that if you literally feel sick when your loved one is not there, it's going to make you want to be with that person, And so that's the idea there. Okay, pop quiz. We always have to have a pop quiz, as you know. So there was an article in the New York Times. Where's Ted? Is Ted here? Oh, okay. So Ted is not allowed to answer this one. So pre-pandemic, truancy has to do with absenteeism from school, right? So, and people who consistently miss, if you miss 1 or 2 days, that's also truancy, but that's not chronic, right? Chronic is defined, I think it's up around 15 to 18 days of the school year that you missed. That's called chronic school truancy. So what was the rate of chronic school truancy pre-pandemic? Around 15%. You guys got that right. Very good. Now, how about during the pandemic? What was the rate? 30 is close. It was 28%. 28%. Okay, now that the pandemic is approximately over, last year, 2023, what was the rate? 26. Those were all good guesses. So we still have a persistently higher level of kids missing school, which I think will have some consequences, perhaps contributing to social disconnection. That's a big one. It was particularly hard on kids, I think, to not be around their friends and not be developing some of these social skills that we all took for granted. So now on a more optimistic note, well, on a different note anyway. So yeah, this was a comment by somebody who was studying the plastics problem. World plastic production now, around 400 million metric tons. As recently as the year 2000, it was 200 million metric tons. And so, and the plastics companies are interested in just continuing to expand this as rapidly as they can. So that could be a problem. And we've learned that much of the recycling thing was basically bogus. Not for metals. Metals and paper recycle very well, particularly aluminum. But for most plastics, they don't recycle well, and there's not really a big invested effort at or invested interests that want to do recycling of most plastics. Plastic number 1 and plastic number 2 seem to be fairly recyclable, but most of the other numbers are really not. Microplastics is something that you're probably seeing in the news a lot lately. And of course, that's small plastics, and nanoplastics is even smaller. The nomenclature here is a little bit curious because micro usually refers to things that are around 10 to the minus 6 meters in size. And nano usually means 10 to the minus 9th, that is to say millionth and billionth respectively. But microplastics in this case refers to smaller than 5 millimeter size, so still visible to the naked eye. And nanoplastics, now that's not really in the range of 10 to the minus 6 meter, but it's a range of sizes that I think includes things that are down in that smaller range. So it's a big range of small plastics. And nanoplastics means smaller than a micrometer. That is to say, is it cut off there? A millionth of a meter. And the reason they made a distinction there is because one of the concerns with nanoplastics is that these things are small enough to get inside cells, whereas the larger microplastics generally cannot get inside the cell. And so what they do then to our biology, it's still not altogether clear. But where have plastics been found? And I'm talking here about microplastics for the most part, and to a certain extent nanoplastics. Human breast milk, placenta, these are some of the tissues that have been studied and found to have microplastics or nanoplastics. And placenta, of course, is the structure between the fetus and the mother that helps get rid of waste and provide nutrients to the growing fetus. It's been found in our lungs, in our blood. It's been found deep inside of brain tumors. It's been found in arterial plaques. Plaques are the things, the structures, abnormal structures inside of our arteries that end up causing clots and therefore heart attacks or strokes. And so they found microplastics inside those plaques. And you can imagine with something like plastic, which is slippery, then that seems to make plaques more unstable, right? If you have plaque, you want it to be stable plaque so that it stays there and doesn't do anything. But if it's slippery, then it's going to dislodge, and that's where heart attacks and strokes come from. They've also geographically found microplastics in Antarctica, at the bottom of glacial lakes, on Mount Everest. In many personal care products, they're always finding new uses for plastics. And I have nothing against plastics. Plastics are one of the remarkable technologies of the modern era. We just have to recognize that things can have their upside and they can have their downside. And it's on us to recognize the downside and try to mitigate that or prevent it. But anything that has a powdery feel or a slippery feel may have plastics in it, and if you're using it, you may want to look into that. Do you fancy a cup of tea, or as the British say, a cuppa? There's been some interesting studies looking at how many particles of microplastics are released when you dip that innocent-looking little tea bag into a cup of hot water, which is basically designed, the hot water, to release plastics. Because some brands of tea bags have up to 25% plastic in that little bag. Others have a lot less because it's paper with simply a plastic seal. And that releases a lot less plastic. But when they looked at a number of even high-class brands of microplastics, like the ones that are shaped kind of like a pyramid, I guess, right? Those are among the worst. Sometimes the more you pay for it, the more plastic there is, because it's got nice qualities, you know, the kind of qualities that you want in a tea bag, right? And so they found up to 11 billion microplastic pieces in each cup, plus 3 billion in nanoplastics. Now, we don't know what the health consequences of these things are. I'm not standing up telling you this is the worst thing that ever occurred. It's just something for us to be aware of in case, and to look for alternatives, like using loose tea leaves inside of a metal holder so that you're not getting any plastic at all. Or at least there are some brands of tea bags that do not have microplastics, and if you just type in on your search engine tea bags and microplastics, you'll get a list of manufacturers that make better ones. And when the manufacturers are asked about this, they say, well, it'll be too expensive to change it and stuff like that. So that's the kind of thing that we could perhaps give them feedback on. One of the problems with microplastics, again, they're too big to get inside of cells as far as we know, but they can often have, not every microplastic does this, but some plastics have hormone-like qualities, so-called gender-bending qualities. I remember reading one study that looked at drinking water that was collected downstream of a plant that was processing our water, our wastewater, and some of this had to do with people taking birth control pills, which of course have estrogen in them. But it wasn't just that, even the microplastics. And when they examined the gender of the fish downstream from the water treatment plant, they found like 70 to 80% females instead of the usual roughly 50-50 split of male-female in the fish. I'm not going to say that that was just from the microplastics. That was from other things that can also have hormone-like effects. And microplastics potentially could affect cancer rates. Say, for example, if you have an estrogen-sensitive breast cancer or a prostate cancer, certain other cancers that are hormone sensitive, you don't want things going into your body that mimic those hormones that might aggravate the cancer. And so here's some good news. It's not all bad news. So our brains are getting bigger. In fact, I've noticed just since this morning that your brains are getting bigger. Not all of you, but some of you, yeah. So when they looked at the Framingham Heart Study, is a big, even though it has the word heart in it, they also found this massive collection of evidence on a bunch of people that fill out, very detailed surveys, and this has been going on since the 1930s at least. And so they have a huge amount of, like tens of thousands of people that they've got a lot of great data on, and so they use that in various creative ways, including imaging of the brain. And so they've actually seen a number of parts of the brain that are simply larger volume-wise than they used to be, including our gray matter. So humans don't always do good things with their brains, but hopefully, on balance, that'll be a good thing. And the thought is that that might provide some reserve against dementia, because dementia rates, when evaluated separately, have actually shown a decrease over time. So that's encouraging. Some of you may have heard of some of these super popular weight loss drugs nowadays. Wegovy and Zepbound are a couple of them. And so I thought this was interesting because we all hear about the bad things that AI can do, and that's something that I'm quite concerned about, including, for example, autonomous weapons. Things like weapons deciding because of their AI algorithm that it's okay to, shoot somebody or send a missile out or whatever. So these are very real concerns. So it's nice to see that every now and then AI can be used for something good. And so this was an interesting study in Spain, where these researchers, Ted and I grew up in Spain, so we're always interested in things from Spain. They used AI to try to find, and with these popular weight loss drugs, because they're usually proteins, they're not given by mouth because that would not get absorbed well, and it would be destroyed in the stomach for the most part. And so they end up being injected. So these researchers decided to try to find non-protein or non-peptide molecules that do the same thing as these very popular and very effective when used properly medications. And so they were able to use AI to find a couple of natural products, which they haven't revealed yet what they are, because I'm sure they want to make money off of it or whatever. But the benefit is that it would be that at least ideally would have fewer side effects and be able to be taken orally rather than by injection. Financial toxicity is another term that is being used because, anything that, when present in larger amounts, anything that causes damage could be said to be a toxin, right? That's the definition of a toxin. And so some marketing genius came up with the idea of financial toxicity, which is the medical effects of financial problems. That tends to be greater in countries like ours that don't have a national health program yet, or the financial effects of medical problems. It can go either way, right? And some of the conditions that have been looked at, there have been a number, but two that I saw recently were heart failure and breast cancer. Leads to avoiding care, delaying care, not getting or taking your medications, and of course psychological distress. And in a 2017 survey in the US, over half of Americans reported, they didn't use the term financial toxicity, but that's what they were experiencing. And in fact, I remember when I went through medical school, starting in 1983. Even then, the leading cause of personal bankruptcy in the U.S. was medical bills, even in 1983. 2024, the leading cause of personal bankruptcy in the U.S. is medical bills. That has not changed. And this, by the way, is mostly in people with insurance, not people without insurance. You know, people without insurance are having the worst financial toxicity because they're not even getting care. So it doesn't cost them anything, right? They're, you know. So, and I've noticed over the many years that I've worked with, I have tended to work in low-income clinics, and a huge number of people don't know of the resources that they could access, actually, you know. But the system shouldn't be that complicated. You shouldn't have to be a genius, you know, to get care. You should be able to just go into a clinic somewhere and you get care, and they have your record from the other place, and it's not like pulling teeth, you know. Although that should be free too. And so, for example, if you live in Harris County, you can get excellent, and depending on your level of income, you can get excellent care. But a lot of people don't realize that they're eligible for it. Tuberculosis, here's another little bright spot. Tuberculosis is making a small comeback. Fortunately, in the U.S., it is still something that is not very common compared to other countries. In Egypt, I think they call it SIL. SIL, is that right? Yeah. Yeah. So, and one of my favorite quotes, this will tell you how much of a nerd I am. Tuberculosis was described by one famous doctor a century ago as instead of being a medical disease that has a social aspect, which is how we often tend to think of these things, he referred to it, because it was found more in places where you had poverty, overcrowded housing, poor housing, you know, poor access to nutrition. He said, no, it's not a medical disease with a social aspect. It's a social disease that, oh, by the way, has a medical aspect. And so that kind of goes back to the idea of community health and a culture of connection and investing in the things that help. So, and the pandemic affected a lot of illnesses, especially infectious diseases, but other things as well, even cancer care, people delaying their cancer treatments and stuff like that, or their cancer diagnoses. There's now a new epidemic of syphilis because when the pandemic came along, and this is hard to avoid, I recognize. Pandemic comes along, you got to deal with that. Money goes into there, but money came from certain places, including syphilis diagnosis and care, and so now that all the money went into COVID, now we're seeing a corresponding rise in syphilis and some other infectious diseases. But hopefully we'll take care of that with appropriate investment in treatment. And we heard a great talk recently. Was our previous speaker in the audience today? No, the one that talked about his excellent response to psychedelics in connection with PTSD. A superb talk. And so I'll be going to an addiction medicine conference next week. I'll be getting an update on a little bit of everything, but including the therapeutic use of psychedelics. Again, it's not, and I'm not recommending people go home and try this. This is not medical advice. This is just what's exciting about the potential of these, about using certain psychedelics at certain doses in a certain context for things like depression and PTSD, is that unlike, you know, depression medicines, for example, or even PTSD, where the medications that have been tried for these things have not been effective at all. You know, well, they've helped, I shouldn't say that. They help some people, but there's a large segment of the population that isn't helped by them. And we haven't had really any significant new medications for these for quite a while. And so with PTSD and even depression, in some cases, and we have to do careful studies to make sure that it's not the placebo effect or one of these other things, but sometimes even with a single treatment or even with a very limited number of treatments, like just a handful, and then you can have durable benefit. And so this is one of the things that's being looked at. So, and I'm prepared to start prescribing these things starting at Oasis probably next week, Terry, if that's okay with you. But no, but I mean, if the studies are done that show how to do it effectively and safely, and it's approved and stuff like that, and they won't throw me in jail, then I certainly wouldn't object to prescribing it to patients. So, and that's it. So here's some of my sources and resources, and so I'm probably over time. Or no? Yeah. All right, thank you.
Richard, are you going to lunch today, Richard? Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, there you are. Yeah. Oh, good, well, he'll be at lunch today. And this is a question I'd like to ask. Because it is a holiday Sunday, we need to know approximately how many people are going to go to Katz's. So can you do these? Put up your hand, and Jennifer's going to count. All right, they were like, we were going to say, 10 to 15 or whatever. And they were like, no, that's not how it's working today, because today there's too many people eating out at this time. All right, so just a couple of announcements. We have Oasis Cards coming up. On the 11th, we have the Blues Night with the Mighty Orc at the Big Easy, which is always fun. Saturday, April 14th, we have a bicycle ride. And then we have the Oasis Book Club meeting. So let's go ahead and hear one more song, and then I'll do a couple of announcements, and we'll be ready for the rest of the day. All right, thanks, Hank Wojcik.
Good to see you all again. Here's the last song on the record. I'll leave you with this one. Peace unto you till we meet again. Gone on our ways, spirits in the wind. Peace unto you wherever you may roam. A long winding road surely bring you home. Peace unto you, brush away your tears, trusting in love, drive away your fears. Peace unto you, you're not the only one. Dawn will surely come. Shine on, keep shining long through the night. Guide us to safer shores. Shine on, keep shining your golden light. On, further on, further on. Peace unto you till we meet again. Gone on our ways, spirits in the wind.
Thank you so much, Hank. That was beautiful. And thank you so much, Richard, for your talk. It was amazing and very eye-opening about things. I loved the tidbits. It was very interesting and gave us a lot to think about. I'll say the money speech right now. You know, if you can, please give, and if you can't, please keep coming back. But we can definitely use anything that you can give us. There's all sorts of ways to do it. It's here. There's a hat in the back. Tim's back there. There he is. Yay. Anyway, so next week we're going to see Nicole Quinn, who is, she brings a whimsical flair to your favorite songs. And then we have Evan Stewart, is an assistant professor in sociology at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. So, with that said, we're going to go to Katz's now, some of us, the rest of us. Oh, two.
One, I'm the unofficial chairman, not chairman, chairman. Here's him over here. Just leave them out in groups of 5. Number 2, if you're going to lunch and you're a volunteer and will be late going to lunch, take one of these cards, give them to a friend, they can slap it on the table and save you a place to sit. So if you're a volunteer going to be late for lunch, cards are right here. Take one. The 2 sizes, large and small.
Thanks to the chairman. We appreciate it. And also, Brian, thank you for your community moment. We had quite a wonderful day today. All right, well, go out and enjoy yourselves.